Jody. Hi, Jody. How are you?
Hi, Liz. How you doing?
Good, good, good. Very excited we're able to do this. We just
Yeah,
actually, mostly, a lot of the people that are in chat, we just came out of prayer
praise God.
and prayed for, prayed for everybody, prayed for Juan, prayed for, all of us. And there's a lot of people from a lot of different places on here. God bless you guys, really. Yes, we will not be slaves again. That's the reason I wore this. I wore,
I like
Jennifer Mack sent me a bunch of stuff. This
that.
World According to Juan, Slaves No More.
I like it.
Yeah, this is an awesome shirt. There are links below where you can get the stuff from Jennifer. It's an interesting thing, and I'm going to stop this, Jody, as soon as Juan gets on. But I told you I was burning with the word about Moses, and
Yeah.
I said a little bit. Let me just, because it will go right into what Juan's saying.
Okay.
For those that have read the story of Moses and know of it, he was the deliverer for Israel.
Right.
And after taking 1 million Jews, Israelis, out of Egypt, that they were slaves for a couple hundred years, and bringing them toward the promised land,
Right.
Aaron held up, an arm of Moses with the rod, and they got through the Red Sea, and here they are. Moses is about to get the laws from God.
Right.
He goes up on the mount.
Right.
How people don't change. He goes up in the mountain and he's delayed. And it says he was delayed about a month. So what happens while he's delayed? People are sick of waiting.
Right.
They were just delivered. They just saw miracles. They were sick of waiting. And so Aaron said he bowed to the people that were there.
Exactly.
He gave to them, like some pastors do to their churches.
Yes.
And he bowed to the people that were there and said, okay, if you want something to worship, because Moses is in fact with the law and we don't know what's going on, give me all your jewelry, all your gold and everything. And they melted it and made a golden calf and worshiped it.
Yeah.
Not much has changed.
Yeah. It's
much
true.
has changed.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's so true. And it's funny because the Lord gave me a similar thing where they complained because God wasn't doing it the way they expected it to be.
Yeah, exactly.
So I had tweeted that the day after Trump's announcement because I was getting bombarded. People, I love them, but holding on in the faith was not. They're like, I'm done with this. We got to wait till 2024. And I'm going, maybe we don't have to wait till 2024.
That's right.
But the idea was, and then they had to walk by faith through the water. So God made a little alleyway there, the walls of water on beside them, and they could have said, I don't trust this plan. I'm going to stay back here by the rock over here.
Exactly.
And, with the enemy closing in. So they had a choice. They could remain where they were and either be enslaved again or killed, or just trust that the Lord is doing his thing and move on with God. So that's so funny that the Lord used Moses for both of us.
Yes, it's really because what happened was I was on a show. Juan said it'll be on in a minute, guys.
Okay.
I was on a show, and before the show, I was praying because I pray before every show.
Yeah.
I asked God, what should I say?
Right.
And so he said to me, you're on a mission. And this was the day before, this was Monday.
Wow.
So the day before the speech.
Right.
I'm praying, he would say, a general would be standing next to him and all this stuff.
Right.
So what happened was I get this word, and God says, just make sure you bring hope, faith.
Right.
And I went, uh-oh. You know what that means? I know what that means. If he's telling me to speak faith and hope, there's got to be something that's going to happen that's going to need faith and hope.
Exactly.
So I said it on the show. I said, look, I hope you guys don't get mad at me for saying this.
Right.
But I got to say what I was told.
Yeah. You have
on a mission.
Yeah.
So very, very interesting.
Yeah. And that's important that we do what the Lord is saying, because the Lord speaks to me that way as well. And the way he did it was in Numbers when they sent the spies over. The Lord knew what was in Canaan. He knew what was there. He wanted to know
Yes.
what their
Yeah.
report was going to be. Do you believe the word I have said, where I've said, I've given you this Canaan? You know?
Amen. I
So,
need to address somebody, and I always do this. So,
yes.
I'm
Okay.
addressing someone in the chat.
Okay.
They said, so we can't say anything bad about Juan, even though what he said didn't happen. Now, let me just explain something to you. Okay. Let me just put it in whoever this person is. I don't know. Yeah, Juan's coming. He's going to be there and
Yeah.
going to be there any minute, any second.
He's texting
Let me explain something to you. If you have something major happen in your home, then and there's things going on behind the scenes, and you told people a certain thing would happen because of what you knew inside your home. And then it didn't happen because things changed in your home. And then you look like you're telling people false things, but you're not.
Yeah. Can I?
So I'm hoping that people will understand. If you do not want to be here watching this, no one's asking you to.
Yeah. May I interject too, as a Marine veteran?
Juan's here. Hold on. Let me just get him on. Let me get him on. Okay, Juan.
Here he is.
Hey,
You are.
what's going on here, girls?
You're just talking to me. Hey, look what I got on. World according to Juan. Slaves no more.
That's pretty fun. You
Yeah, it
can't
is.
see it, but I got.
a lot of fun.
Let's see if
How
I
you
don't know if
doing,
you
my
see
friend?
this.
You okay?
Good. Can you see that? I don't know if you can see that or not.
Yeah.
Looks
Just
nice.
Very
like
cool.
Matador.
It's the Matador. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's too hard to see right there, but
Yeah.
if you looked, if I was to get it right.
There it is. There it is. I saw it.
Yeah, it's very fun.
That is really cool.
I've really taken a liking to it. I wore it a couple of times out to dinner, and people really get a kick out of it. So I must have had 20 people come up to me last night when we were having dinner at a local restaurant here in Palm Beach. That you'd think you'd get some people that wouldn't like it; they'd be protesting or something because they had President Trump on it. And it was just a regular restaurant, outdoor, sort of outdoor situation. It was beautiful. People just loved it. So.
All right, Juan. I got a couple things that I'm rereading your book, Kid on the by the Side of the Road. Let me tell you.
Yeah, let's not say on the side of the road. It sounds like roadkill.
Get by the side of the road. I want to make you tea with honey. The mom in me is very hard. Anyway.
Oh, I'd love to have some tea with honey. In fact, I'm going to be having something here shortly. I'm
yeah, and Manuka honey.
Yep.
Yeah.
A little whiskey in it.
There you go. Yeah. Don't even worry about anything. So anyway, I was reading it again, and I know people want me to ask you about Trump's speech, and we're gonna do that. But I've got to, I got a couple people that have asked me a couple of things, and I've got. Let me just read where. Don't do this now. We, put. Yeah, we're all that kid who was needed to and now is coming of age in time to finally reverse the coup and recapture America. And then a couple of paragraphs down, this is very important. I've had so many people ask me to ask you this. We must lay bare the phony money operations they've foisted on us through lies to take over our country and our currency. We need to uproot the fake leaders of industry as well as the lies in our tax system. And it goes on and says they've stolen that money from each of us and others. This is a question people are asking. With everything that's going on, and when things get to the point where banks are affected, will this affect any of the money that people have saved in their bank accounts, or do they Did they take it?
Go ahead.
No one?
Okay, let me. This is a hard one for people to get their minds around because it becomes very personal. But
Right.
let me start it this way. And there's a lot of ways I probably need to answer this. It's not just one 2-sentence answer or something. Years ago, when I was much younger, and the crowd I was running with,
There you go.
I remember we had a friend that came over that I didn't know very well, but the other people knew pretty well. He made this super hard pitch about how these guys each needed to come up with 10 grand for this party thing they had going to chip in, and they were all going to make big money. And this is a pretty smart businessman. This isn't somebody that's just anybody.
Right.
And it was a classic Ponzi scheme. But this guy had gotten involved, and he was trying to convince these other guys to get involved. After the guy left, my friend, who was ultra savvy, had been around for a very long time, and had lots of patents and businesses and invented things that we use every day even now. So he says, "What do you think of that guy?" And I said, it's too good to be true.
Right.
And it might work with this crowd and the next crowd, but it's like, and we'd had a conversation about gambling, using what's called the LaRouche and reverse LaRouche method. The LaRouche method is you go in the red, and you, if you bet, in card, or casino gambling, they'll have a minimum and a maximum bet on the table. So it might say $5 minimum bet and $500 maximum. Now, why is that? Because if you're Bill Gates or Saudi prince or money in the, if you can just keep doubling your money continuously until the table finally comes back in your direction, you could always keep winning if it's infinity. But when you have a limited number of times you can double down on your bet, then all of a sudden the amount that you have to bet to win back what you initially bet becomes astronomical if the table goes against you. And there's an old saying, the house always wins. The LaRouche method is that you say you bet $1 and you lose it, now you bet $2, and if you lose that, now you got to bet $4, and you're trying continuously just to win back your original dollar. If you accelerate it, you bet $1. If you lose that, maybe you do $3 the next time. Maybe you do $9 the next time. But with table limits, pretty soon you've reached the maximum bet, and you can't win back all the money you've already lost. And I've sat at the table and watched, for example, in roulette, black and red. And I've watched it go 27 times on just black.
Wow.
And they have the little counter things that tell you what the table's done at different times. It was shocking to me because odds would be 50-50. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And even the guy running the table says, well, I sit here every day. I don't remember seeing it go that high ever before. And in fact, at a certain point, the pit boss came over. It did go red a couple more times, but then they closed down that table. You got to wonder what in the world's going on. Well, even the casino guys knew something was wrong there. That didn't, that seemed to make no sense. The other side of the coin is there was a group of school teachers They wrote a book in the mid 60s. And what the context was that they had these 6 grade school teachers who had gone to Monte Carlo. They'd come up with a plan. One of the grade school teachers was a mathematician, and he had an idea of how you could win, but he wanted to try it out. So they practiced with a Monopoly style home game playing roulette. And it was based on a book, 50,000 spins of the roulette wheel. That was every single spin, 50,000 spins of a roulette wheel in Monte Carlo. So he had come up with a formula that could win virtually every time. And in fact, 6 grade school teachers broke the bank 6 times in Monte Carlo. And breaking the bank was to reach the table loss limit, which was $100,000 at that time.
Wow.
How did they do that? They they didn't double down their bets every time. What they did is they would bet essentially a small bet. I think it was $5, and this, that's in the 60s, so is actually significantly more than we would think of now. That might be the equivalent of $20 or $30 a bet. So they bet $5 every time. If the table was a win for them, then they would let it ride. And they'd let it ride a couple of times. So then it was $10, then it was $20. And I think they let it win 3 times. They dragged back their original $5, and now they played with the house's money. And they would up it a few more times. And now they're playing for momentum on the table. And so, and they're playing with the house's money. And most of the time, they just lose all of their original bet and be back down to 0. But once every 24 hours or so, approximately, the table would have a run or a streak on average. And if you were to look at 100 spins of the roulette wheel, it might go 75% one way or the other. And if you happen to be on the right side of that when it happened, you could make a bunch of money. And so they were going with the odds that generally favor the house. They, when the table started going their direction and they're doubling down with the house's money. What was interesting about that was the maximum that they could lose every single bet. The roulette wheel could go 3 or 4 minutes. And there was I think they averaged or spent 30 minutes an hour, but it was less than. And so to keep that in 5, the maximum you could lose is $100 bet. Well, even when it's streak, we go back to the streak, lose the whole $100, right?
We're losing you a little bit. Yeah.
Juan.
So the maximum you could lose $1 an hour, but when the table, you could make massive amount of money.
Juan, you might want to move.
Oh.
You might want to move to a different spot because you're breaking up really bad.
All right. Is that better?
No.
Is that any better, girls?
No, still breaking up.
It's not nice for it to be breaking up. All
I
right,
know.
hold your horses 1 second.
Okay.
Gosh, I'm right in the freaking downtown. It should be perfect.
Okay, yeah, it's better
Okay.
now. Better now.
Okay. Okay. So now what you're looking for is one streak, and it's not a little streak, it's a long streak. And sometimes it might take 200 spins. You might be up for hours and then lose it all. But what they were looking for was the big one. Because once you get up in the big numbers and you're suddenly winning, and their goal, there was times when they were up, that the maximum they could lose an hour was $100 an hour, let's say. If you're there for 24 hours, if you lost all of your money over 24 hours, you only had $2,400 at risk. Well, when the table takes it back periodically, the reality is, yes, they would lose $2,400 a day. And it was one of those things where you would have a streak, but they weren't looking to make just a few $100s. They were looking for the big streak. So they were playing the odds, and they weren't willing to walk away when they were up $25,000. They had to go to table limits because they knew that eventually it would come back in their favor, and they'd have the maximum win. So all 6 players won $100,000 playing these small $5 bets.
Wow.
Can you imagine that? And these are just school teachers. And they wrote a book about it. It was pretty amazing. Then that's playing with the house's money. You would start with your own, but when you're doubling down and tripling down, you're playing with the house's money. So now you think about what's going on in the world right now, in the financial world. In a Ponzi scheme, like my friends were being pitched by this pretty good businessman, he was pitching them that if they all put in, I think he was trying to get 20 guys to put in $10,000, and then everybody on the top would get some money and they'd be out, and they were doing it like 3 or 4 times, and he'd already put in his $10,000. And these were pretty rich guys. This was the early 70s. They were not, for their time period, they weren't, cheapskates. And, but they had a very convincing story about how they were, doubling down, and everybody's going to be a gazillionaire. And, instantly I said, well, but how, I understood this about the gambling. He says, but is there enough people as you get further on? It's going to fail somewhere. Well, then they were willing to blame it on whoever wasn't able to do the job good enough. Some guys are good businessmen and can convince everybody else to join it, and it makes sense. So if you're a good businessman, then you could be part of the big winnings, and you put in your 10,000 now, you go through 2 cycles, find good guys that really know how to do it, that can also find guys that can put in $10,000 each. And if you knew the right guys with that kind of money, in 3 shots through it, you walk away, with $100,000 and a $10,000 investment. They're only going to be doing it over a couple week period. Well, it turns out it was being run by one of the big motorcycle gangs. And the guys that were doing it were all bikers, but they had this, they were supposedly providing security for the games, because everybody had to bring cash and all this other stuff. And you have to understand, this is in California at the time. You had guys flying in from other parts of the country to put their money in, to be part of it. They were going to get other people. And my friend, he says, yeah, this is going to end badly for everybody you watch. And he just faded. I've got so many things going right now. I got to stick with my regular business stuff. Didn't want to be insulting to the people that were inviting him. And sure enough, it was about 3-4 months later, a bunch of business people got caught involved in this Ponzi scheme, and lots of people got hurt, and all the main players disappeared, and they made all their money and went, and a lot of people got hurt. Because they bought the scam that if you were just, if you did fail, it was your fault because you just weren't good at selling. And it was playing to a crowd that their whole, existence lived for selling people and bringing in good businessmen and expanding it out, and the riffraff out at the edge or at the end. That was their responsibility to keep doubling down. It could go on forever. I come back to what's going on in America. You have a currency that is this fiat paper money that is in reality a type of Ponzi scheme. And the reason that they have this interest rate in there that's always going at a certain percentage is because the players that captured our monetary system are running a world-class Ponzi scheme. And they are charging us for managing the amount of paper that's out there and who gets it, and when the economy's good and bad, stepping on the gas pedal and stepping on the brake pedal. And they've been doing it for a very long time. A lot of people don't realize there were several banks in the US, all the way back to the beginning of the country, that failed. The Bank of the US was one of the banks that failed, and it tied in this currency, which is just a paper fiat currency. In fact, the current situation we're in, a lot of people didn't catch this little detail. Trump, noticed the world, send in all the filings to run for the presidency. What presidency? What presidency does it say on there? Did he run for the president of U.S. Steel? Did he run for the president of the California Artists Association? Did he run for president of the Yacht Club? I'm serious. What does it say on the paperwork?
Right.
It says President of the Republic. The United States Corporation is something different than the Republic.
Right.
He just threw, and most people didn't catch it. What's the difference? After the bankruptcy of America, they reincorporated and they called America a corporation. And we've had all these presidents in between that most people didn't catch the little nuance. So let me add you one more thing. When you look at, I think how I want to say this, with our paper, it says it's a Federal Reserve note. And there's a lot of Federal Reserves or reserve banks around the world, all tied into this group of banks in London, in the Square Mile, and then the Basel system out of Switzerland that regulate the money and the currencies around the world, different banking systems. And that all ties into the Rothschild group and a bunch of other families who run the money distribution, creation, printing around the world.
Right.
So now your question of your people is, my money safe in the stock market? Is my money safe in
The bank.
the bank? Okay.
Safe, yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'd ask a different question before I ask that. What money? What is money? What is money? Okay. The Constitution says that money is gold and silver coin minted in the U.S. Treasury. It has the mark of the American people imprinted on the gold and silver coinage. And so it has to be a very specific weight, it has to be a very specific purity, and the people running each mint on penalty of long-term imprisonment had to certify and guarantee that any money made gold and silver coin at the various mints around the country had to be a certain weight and quality or purity, or they could go to jail. Nobody played around with this. But when we were conned by con men, just like those guys in the 60s and 70s, into believing that you could manufacture money, fiat paper money,
Right.
endlessly, and there would always be somebody else to buy into the scheme, into the scam. That the consequence of doing this wouldn't catch up with you. You could still play the Ponzi scheme and win because there's always a bigger sucker than you are, and you're a better salesman than the people around you, and you have all the right contacts. So what happened is that America, somebody paid off some politicians. And during the Christmas recess in 1913, and of course the book Jekyll Island is written about this whole thing, these congressmen came in and passed this Federal Reserve Act, turning over the printing and creation of money to this private organization, this banking organization, to manage the supply of the paper currency here in the United States. And that was kind of interesting because it was all about payoffs and backroom deals, and then politicians who'd been bought and paid for, and also the people that recorded how the politicians voted. There's a question whether there was even it was a legal act to do this in the way that it was done. It was a violation of the Constitution. Nobody could get to the judges. Nobody could get to the right place to get anybody to listen to the fact that it wasn't in line with the Constitution. A law that's in violation of the Constitution is no law at all. And we have, that's part of the whole point. So nobody ever got to challenging it because too many people were bought off, benefited, didn't understand, couldn't pay to get to the right place. So with that in mind, then the Federal Reserve banking system and also the IRS, which is necessary here to control how the money is minted and then how it's spent. Politicians got more money because our economy was centralized at the federal level. The creation of money was centralized. And so I know it's a little confusing for people. Hang tight for me for a second. I'm trying to take a very complex subject and talk about it in only a few paragraphs without doing a whole book. And this is stuff you could talk, tons of books have been written about this.
Right.
So when you centralize power in the creation of money and you centralize power in the taxation of the economy, instead of having to buy off politicians in every state, every county, every city, which you might have to buy off 50,000 people. Now you only have to buy off a few congressmen, 500, half of that. You got to go back to when this was set up. It's not, the country didn't have as many states as it does now. Maybe you only got to buy off 20 or 30 that are very influential on the rest. Maybe you got to buy off, 100, 200, whatever it is that somebody has a talk, your buddies, secret handshake crowd. We're going to make sure you get a lot of revenue out of this for your district. We'll make sure you stay in power, get a little something on the side, whatever it is. It's not 50,000. You only need a few politicians, power is consolidated. And then the taxes coming into the federal system are going to be massive, which they are. That big sucking sound, as Ross Perot said, sucking all the air out of the economy into the federal system like a vortex. The money thing, when it's centralized like that, and it's a secret handshake crowd, if you meet the right criteria of the secret handshake people and of the politicians, then you get some of this money in loans for the right rates. Well, who was getting the most money out of the Federal Reserve System? The U.S. government, the politicians. They could go up and create a bond, and let's say that you go up to the Reagan era. We were dying on the vine during Carter. The economy was in horrible shape. Interest rates were out in outer space at the end of the 70s. Reagan comes in. What was the biggest part of the Reagan revolution that got the country rolling again?
Reaganomics.
Reaganomics, but what was the core of it? Most people don't catch this. Reagan came in. We had a Navy that was pushing down into 300 ships, but that wasn't even a real number because we had ships where the paint was falling off in huge chunks, rust everywhere. We had crews that had been in the Navy for several years had never once been to sea. They were being starved of the funds they need to maintain their ships and do the training. And it was literally falling apart at the seams. These big monsters need real care and maintenance, and the crews need to actually go out and do work so that they, know how to use it in a real wartime condition, and they know how to function. They work together. And so Reagan came in, and there wasn't money available in the economy to do stuff because the price of money was so high, interest rates were so high, the housing industry was folding up, factories couldn't employ people because they couldn't get loans to have money available to buy stuff and get going again. So what Reagan did is he injected momentum into the economy. He went to Congress, and under Jimmy Carter, they had stopped the B-1 bomber program. It'd been in development for 20 years, a new bomber to replace the B-52, and supplement it to keep the B-52 at the time still was what they were going to do, but they had a new swept-wing bomber that could work in a modern battlefield, and they just keep the B-52, which came out in the late 50s, and overlapped the two programs. Carter had stopped it and says, we have something better, and so we're not going to waste money on the B-1. But the problem is the B-2 wasn't actually going to be done for another, decade and a half. And so Reagan says, okay, we're not playing that game. The B-1 was all ready to go. It was pretty much developed. They had everything set to go. He says, we're going to go ahead and build the B-1. All the congressmen, we don't have any money. We don't have any money. No, we're going to make a bond. We're going to agree to up the debt ceiling because the U.S. government borrows money and creates its own debt. And so under Carter, we had the first time, I think our U.S. debt was, like $100 billion or something. When Reagan got done, the U.S. debt was like $1 trillion. What did he do? How did he get the U.S. debt up so high? Because he decided to make us a 500 ship Navy, headed for 600, and build the B-1 and continue development on the B-2. And he instituted SDI, Strategic Defense Initiative, to challenge Russia to a arms race. All of that with no money in the bank. What they do? They went to the Federal Reserve with bonds guaranteed by the U.S. taxpayers and the ability to tax the U.S. taxpayers to pay those bonds, to pay those debts to these banks, this reserve system that is really just a fiction. It's, they don't do anything to make the money. There's no gold or silver there. It's just paper. And when Reagan did that, all of a sudden, if you say you're going to build a new submarine like the Trident, okay, those Trident submarines, they cost $1 billion. And so, it's the whole thing was like, I think, 10 billion for the whole combination, because you have all sorts of support systems and like that. This was, that's when a billion was a billion. Now it's nothing.
Right.
Yeah, 45 years ago now, 40 years ago. So what happened was they, you might be working at, what's his name, builds the ships, General Electric, not General Electric, but the big shipbuilder that builds the Trident ships like that.
Yeah.
Come to me in a second.
Right.
Electric boat company. Anyway, so they start to build this. Well, it takes people to do all the work. So you got to hire a bunch of new people to train them how you're going to build this thing. The company has to go and contract for very special metals that are very expensive to be able to fabricate this thing together. They have to go to the computer companies and get all of the latest computer stuff to put in there. They even have to build out the torpedo and
Oh, God.
intercontinental ballistic missile systems that are submarine launch. And so that all created jobs. And America, for the last 150 years, as Eisenhower said, the military-industrial complex, especially after World War I, America's industrial base has been focused into the military. And under Carter, he was shutting that down in many ways and letting it go to rot, but not for a good reason, I can tell you that, but personal opinion there, but I think I can explain why. So the long and short of it is, they jump-started the economy with spending based on borrowing and the good faith and credit of the American people. I bought a house in '87. I think it was January of '87. And at that time, the economy was just starting to feel the effects of the Reagan Revolution hard. It might have been '86. And so that house at the time was, and it was in a very prime area. It was built in '68. And when it was built in '68, it was $40,000. It had gone down at one point. I saw every sale that had happened to the house from the beginning. From '68 to, I think it was '86, I bought that house. January of '86. And at that time, the high on the house had been 120,000. I got it for 80,250. I had the house for 20 months, and I did it on a loan. So I think I only put $5,000 or $10,000 down on the house. I did some reparative work, and I think I put another 20,000 into it. 20 months later, when I went to sell it, it sold for $225,000.
Wow.
It had gone up that radically in a short period of time. Now, there was a big company decided they wanted some of the land right near it, so that jumped some of the value up also. But the reality is, all of a sudden, there was money flowing like water, and people were buying everything that wasn't nailed down, and the money was cheap and easy, and people could get the loans, and all of that spending in the military-industrial complex side was beginning to get down to the average American's level, because the military-industrial machine was just pouring money into jobs, pouring money into manufacturing and raw resources to feed this military-industrial machine that is America, was America at that time. And so prices had gone up because there was more people with money to buy everything. If they spend $1 billion over an electric boat company, and by the way, when you have a submarine with a nuclear reactor, it creates electricity. Electricity drives these big electric engines, and because you can't have a lot of pollution inside your submarine, we choke to death. So that's why they call it electric boat. And so, while the company was spending money and buying stuff, say that you were in a place where they were building these big boats. Okay, the people have to live somewhere. They need a house, so you're paying the workers, and maybe you bring in a bunch of guys and they're making $12,000-15,000 a year in those days. A high price guy might be getting 20 or 25, and now they have credit. And they have enough saved up to put 10% down on a house. They go to the bank and they do that. What does the bank do? They don't have the money in the bank. They go to the Federal Reserve, and they might take 100 guys' houses in a bundle that want to buy a house. And the Federal Reserve says, "Hey, we got 10% down here, and all these people want to buy a house, and they're good for it because they're working at such and so company." So go to the Federal Reserve window and they say, "Hey, we want, maybe you got $1 million down, and you got $10 million in loans that you got to do." So they go to the Federal Reserve, and they might get the money at that time for 6 or 7 or 8%, and they'd loan it out to the person at 10, and they make the money in between. Early in the Reagan administration, it was 12 going on 15 for a while, and the Carter-Reagan transition period was up there around 20-22% even. And so what happened was they created money from nowhere in the Federal Reserve System, printed it up, and pushed it out into the world, and then it started inflation in prices because of demand.
Right.
And prices went up. Okay, so, and I'm coming at this from multiple directions. If you guys just bear with me a second, I hope it'll just all of a sudden crystallize in people's brains. There's a saying that with a gold 1 ounce coin, all through the U.S.'s history, if you had a 1 ounce gold coin in any era, you could go into the best suit maker in town and get a high quality suit, shoes, tie, hat, everything for a $20 gold piece. And which is 1 ounce. That was classically what it was. Now, if you think about that in, say, the 20s or the teens, 15, 18, early 20s, you go out and that was the price of a suit, a quality suit, a $20 gold piece. If you looked at, say, the 80s, when gold spiked up to, in the late 70s, it spiked to like 800 something an ounce. Well, it was a high quality suit. You get a really nice suit for $800 in that era, and all the stuff that goes with it. Today, with gold at around 1700, it's a little low. It's been up as high as almost 3. If you went into any of the quality stores, want to get a decent suit, shoes, anything goes with it, same thing. You could buy a high quality suit and all the accoutrements for the value of a gold coin. And by the way, gold coins don't go for just the raw gold price. If gold's at $1,600-1,700, go try to find a gold coin for that same number, because it's minted. Right. When you get a gold coin, it's not like a gold bar. It's not just a chunk of gold somehow. If it's minted by the U.S. Treasury, and the same with other countries, whether it be Krugerrand, whether it be a Canadian maple leaf, or some of the other countries that have gold coins. Most countries do. Right now, I had to buy some metal the other day, and the premium for that gold coin, I think, was about $600 over the list price, per ounce. So it was more like $23.80, I think I paid for the gold coins that I got the other day. And that's really important to think about, because if you just have, say, gold bars, a lot of times one gold dealer will say, "Oh, I'll take it back forever," and then they go out of business, or they had a little problem or whatever. Nobody wants to trust it, so they want to melt it down, regrade it, and then charge you for all that cost to melt down the gold bar and then certify it with their certification. 99 and 44, 100% new pure gold, with our stamp on it. It's a racket. So when it's done by the U.S. Treasury, U.S. Mint, it's by law, it has to be a certain weight and value, and it's a known thing. It's a recognizable thing. They have their stamp on it, and people recognize it for what it is, and they don't challenge whether it's what it is. As a general rule, it's easy to verify and prove. So you have something that is more fungible,
Right.
easier to exchange,
Right.
more recognizable. It's not, your guarantee that it's what it's truly supposed to be. I promise you it's a pure gold bar with no tungsten in it, which tungsten has very similar weight and stuff like that. There's contention that in some of the storage areas, tungsten was discovered to have replaced our gold bars in some of our systems to make it look like we had more real gold than we do. So anyway,
So I know what you're saying.
but let me try to pull it back together here. I know I'm losing some of them. Bear with me a second. It's a complex subject. I want you to actually know some of this stuff for real here, if possible. So now, you say you've got money in the stock market. You say you've got money in your retirement fund. You say you've got Social Security that you're owed out of the machine, the system, whatever. When you go to redeem those accounts, you go to get paid off, they're going to pay you off in paper. And in reality, it's not even paper most of the time. It's digital quatloos, dots and tittles on a computer screen. That exists in the cyber world. So there was no cost to make it. If you get right down to it, it's insignificant compared to what it was. Look, if I just have to have paper and I can make endlessly, $100 bills with the little threads and all the other stuff and put it out there, and it costs me, 5 to 20 cents a piece to make it. And I can print them out as $100 bills. Actually, it's quite a bit higher than that. But the reality is I can do a scam, and it's like a type of Ponzi scheme. And part of what's happened here in America is we were the best salesmen on the Ponzi scheme over the rest of the world. How was that? Because of our military, our State Department, our politicians were just better mobsters than everybody else was. That's why if I go to Panama and I go to a bank machine in Panama and I put in an amount that I want out of my bank account, it doesn't give me the local currency, it gives me US dollars.
Right.
And go into other countries in the area, they don't trade their own currency, they trade dollars. I go to the bank machine and get dollars out. Why is that? Because we've undermined their local currency, and the confidence level in dollars is so high that we've essentially taken over their economy with our dollars. What's this whole fight about between Russia and China and America concerning oil and oil sales right now? What was Saddam's thing? Saddam wanted to create a basket of currencies that would be the basis for purchasing and trading oil all over the world. But that would have undermined America's position, because America, back in the early 70s, we had the gas crisis. And what was at the core of the gas crisis? They got the Saudis and the OPEC people, this group of oil manufacturing countries, to agree to do all transactions in oil sales in US dollars. And in exchange for that, yeah, I'll cough drop here. In
No.
exchange for that,
my goodness.
in exchange for that, we would provide protection and security for US transacted oil anywhere it goes in the world. So our State Department, our Navy, if anybody messed with a tanker that was traveling with oil that was purchased in dollars, we would pay them a visit and make sure that they didn't do that twice. And so for all the vulnerability of oil tankers moving around the world, nobody messed with oil tankers. They go after cargo ships. They'd go after other stuff. They wouldn't go after oil tankers with oil that was paid for in dollars, where the transaction occurred in dollars, because the U.S. Navy would show up, U.S. State Department would cover for it, and the U.S. political system would be right there in a heartbeat to protect that. And when Saddam started talking, he wanted to do it with a basket of currencies, from various countries, trying to move away from the dollar. That's when we had to come explain to them that that wasn't a healthy idea. And, we'll bring the full weight and force of the American military industrial machine to protect that. So what happened? The dollar became the dominant currency for all types of transactions out across the globe. Why? Because we had the bigger mob,
Right.
the better politicians. Okay, we were the big dog.
Right.
Now that things are getting wonky the way they are, and by the way, had Hillary won when President Trump and Hillary were competing there, in the Hillary camp and the people that created the Clintons and were using them through the political machinery of the planet, they were pushing the crypto side because it came out of the intelligence agency world. And so if she had won, Bitcoin would probably be about $3 million a coin right now.
Wow.
Right now, it's gone from a high of 60
Right.
down to a low of about 16 right now in the last year. But if she had won, that crowd was going to switch us from the dollar, which is U.S. centric, with the political move of the world, into a more global ethereal realm where they can control your accounts. It's all digital inside the machine, inside the banks. And
They love
Connection.
and then look at this current situation with the FTX.
Right.
What was FTX, this company that was funneling money back to the Democrats? We loaned money to the Ukraine
Right.
to help their military to fight Russia. And then they get the money, but because they don't know how they're going to spend it on a new tank or a new aircraft or whatever, they got to put it somewhere temporarily to, get ready in the meantime. They can't just hide it under the bunker. They can't just put it in a steel box and hide it somewhere. So they invest their gazillions back in America and back into other countries in the world, and they find corporations to invest it in. So one of the corporations, they're investing gazillions of the money they're receiving from the American people for their military machine. They invested in a company called FTX. And it's a crypto trading company. What they were going to do, what FTX was trying to create, was a crypto exchange system. Because you have lots of different types of cryptos. And, Bitcoin's the most known, but you have Ethereum, you have XRP, and, all sorts of different ones. So they're going to have this trading platform, kind of like the stock market of cryptos, and you could buy here and sell there and transact over here, and
Right.
you'd be all regulated, and everybody has to complete their transactions in a certain period of time, and they have to get the stuff safely from this guy to that guy and their documentation and all that. So we'll be the store for cryptos of all different types. You just come to us. And it was a good deal, a great racket. But then what they were doing to get political protection, if you will, favor from all the, they were creating their own securities commission type of thing. A lot of people don't know this. The Securities and Exchange Commission, you think of that as being like some big federal agency. It's no more federal than Federal Express. Or Federal Reserve.
I was going to say
It's
that.
a private group, okay? And they control things with the force of law.
Right.
It's a racket. They were going to do the same thing with the cryptos with FTX. Only thing is, what are they doing? They're putting money back into the U.S. political machine, favoring certain politicians and political things that suited their purposes. Were anti-Trump, anti-MAGA politicians.
Right.
Where did the money come from? The U.S. government
Right.
was paying, because certain people that knew the scam were making sure that the money was going to Ukraine. They spent into the Ukraine system the equivalent of the entire budget for the Russia for 1 year for their military. That's how much money we gave to Ukraine since the invasion. Okay, arguably 67 to 80 billion dollars, depending on which group you're asking. So, and that's in a location where a billion's more like a real billion nowadays.
Yeah.
Soviets get a better deal for their military work than we do. So, long and short of it is how much of that actually went for real equipment, troops, and supplies, and everything else, and how much of it went through the machine like shit through a goose, right back on our turf, and shit into our American political system to do the right buy-off, pay the right person, okay, and get the right politician on the boat for us with what we want to do.
Right.
And you wonder how things got so screwed up in our electoral system. Well, you look at some of these races, I had the largest candidates coalition, still do, in the 2022 race. Our guys, if they spent 100,000, the other guy was spending, 2 million.
Right.
If our guys were spending $1 million on their campaign, the other guys were spending 10, 12, 15 million. If our guys were spending 10 million in senator races, the other guys are spending 150 million. Where did that money come from?
Right. Right.
It's this money
Exactly.
from things like the FTX system. We're fighting the machine right out of Washington, the club, the secret handshake crowd. It's the Ponzi scheme. Who controls? Who started the scheme? Who controls the levers? Who decides to bring in a few shills to finish the game, to clip those players and get them to go out and find more people to bring in?
Right.
Okay? So now, hopefully, I've got your people who probably already knew much of what I just said, but sometimes you have to revisit it for new people and also to get everybody on the same page. You can't assume everybody quite gets it. Now, you have to, kind of take it the way I'm saying it, at least for the sake of discussion. Are we in the midst of some kind of a huge Ponzi scheme, the way our money is created? Who controls how it's taxed? Who gets some at the loan window and who doesn't? Who qualifies to get a loan and why? And who doesn't? And who pays higher money for the loan and who pays less? Okay? So in this racket, you can pick winners and losers. We have all these corporations that get huge loans and then they go bankrupt. But who's we've got the secret handshake behind the scenes, even with FTX. How come it was a racket from the beginning? Who said we're going to allow them to invest it that way? We lost oversight when it went to Ukraine and then came back through other channels. Did somebody know exactly where the money was really going before it ever got to Ukraine? Of course they did. That money didn't go to Ukraine unless they already knew where they were going to spend that money. And lots of other projects like FTX. And because it was a racket. And then they go bankrupt. Nobody knows what happened. We're sorry. The books are all messed up. I can't see it. There's nothing to go after now legally because they're bust. And there's just a few players left. When the Ponzi scheme's over, the guys at the top are long gone. They've gone into the wind. We can't find them. They're biker guys. They're Hell's Angels. Do you really want to find them anyway? Because they're not going to be happy if you do. Or you just say good enough, slap the hands of a few of the poor little people that weren't in the right place, got caught into the wrong scheme, and have a laugh and move on. Throw a couple of people in jail and you're done.
Right.
So now you got all of the people. It's Bernie Madoff on steroids at a national level. Yeah. You've created paper and an unreal value and massive obligations that you're supposedly going to pay off. And the last people that show up at the thing, well, all those other guys got money. All those other guys are driving Rolls Royces. It's my turn. It's my turn. It's my turn. You can't stop the game now. You can't bust it. I can't lose. Why? God help me. Excuse me. You're praying to God to help you. You're in the house of Satan, the devil, Baal. Washington, D.C., it's completely stamped, imprinted, emblazoned at every corner.
Yes.
From the very center out, with the Baal, Osiris, Luciferian system, every angle of every street, every cornerstone in every building, all the symbolic meaning is Luciferian. Oh, and by the way, in Rome, the Temple of Saturn is where they minted the money. And the most important festival of the year was the Saturn Festival. He was the most powerful god in the Roman system. And in our system, the most powerful god, once again, is built around this money, the Osiris system. And so on our dollars, on our paper money, not the coins, but on the paper money, you see dozens, even hundreds of mysterious occult symbology. Oh, it's so that we can watch for counterfeiters. Oh, it's so that we know that it's the real money. We have little secret features hidden in the money. So if our guys look at it with a loupe, with a very tiny microscope, they can see it's not the real thing. No, it's imprinted, it's tattooed, it's marked for ownership by Satan, Lucifer, the devil himself. It's the Roman Saturn system. Again, you're carrying around talismans that have power in the occult world in your pocket every day. To go out and do your transactions, you ask, God bless this transaction.
That's right.
God bless this money that I'm putting into the church, into the basket right now.
That's right.
Bless it. And it's what? It's marked with all the symbology of the Luciferian Baal system itself.
We're stuck right now. What are we going to do?
Well, again,
what are we going to do? So we've got to find you got to get a loaf of bread. You're either using your plastic or you're using the dollars. Both are demonic.
Well, again, Christ said, Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's.
That's
Whose
right.
image is on the coin? Caesar's. Give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Okay, he wants to tax it. Well, it's his. What do you have that isn't tied into the Caesar system? Do you keep your wealth denominated in the tributes of Rome, of the Federal Reserve? Are you counting on Lucifer, Baal, the devil, goes by 1,000 names, the green man, to bless you and to prosper your We live in a cruel, wicked world filled with the cult. It's a horrible thing. But do we have to stay there? And is there a route away from that? Again, why did President Trump say he's running for president of the Republic instead of the United States of America? When did all of that change? One's the corporation, one's the constitutional republic. Now, and the money is at the core of all that, by the way. In fact, who attacked Trump? Where did this attack come from the very beginning with the dossier? Well, it was out of the city of London.
Right.
The 1 square mile, the banking group at the center of London, the banks. Okay, that Luciferian serpent system. Okay, it came out of that system. And what were they going after? Trump was a threat to them.
Right.
America, during the Trump administration, why would Trump be an excellent choice to go through what we're going through with America? Because he went through the bankruptcy process a couple different times. What's that got to do with anything? See, he still got his money. When you go through the bankruptcy system like that, how much of that is valid? What are the real debts that are owed, and what's been inflated? What's wrong? And what's the contract actually say? So he's actually got some experience with bankruptcy and coming through it intact in one piece, because he isolated different projects, and then the real debtors got their money, and the ones who was actually what was the unique thing about Trump? Trump, at a certain point, he negotiated with all the creditors, and he already had their money. He was the best deal, and he says, well, if you want to get some of your money back, you're going to have to work a deal with me, because the economy changed, it folded up, so these things made sense early on, but now they don't. So you're going to have to renegotiate with me how we're going to pay it back, how much you're going to take back, and I'm willing to do that with you. If you don't want my help, okay, well, this went bankrupt, I walk away. Oh, no, Mr. Trump, no, we'd like to keep you around, because you might have enough skill sets to at least get us some of our money back.
Funny.
He had their money. They were the ones that needed him. He didn't need them anymore. He had money. Things went bust. He got him to renegotiate the rates. He got to renegotiate the schedule to get him paid back, and reorient the way that investment was working. And eventually they all got paid back over a longer period of time at a lower rate. He redid a fairer deal. What's going to have to happen in America? What happens with the Ponzi scheme if it folds? And what's let me just finish this one thing. What's the best thing you can do when you're caught in a system like this? First, it's better off not to get in there in the first place.
Yeah.
It's better to decide to cut your losses.
Get out of Babylon.
If it's about to go wonky, it's near collapse, it's musical chairs, you get a solid place to sit as quick as possible before the music stops, and before everybody else does. So what's a solid place to be right now? It's real American money.
Gold and
It's
silver.
gold and silver.
Yeah.
Okay, constitutional money. Constitutional money is going to do fine. It's done fine all the way since the creation of the country. It's the fake money, part of the Ponzi scheme, that you're in trouble on.
So the coin stand.
In order to stay solid through all this, there's been lots of times where it made sense to be part of the Ponzi scheme and get the loans and watch the boom cycle and participate in it. But if you didn't have the inside scoop, if you weren't aware of what's going on and you weren't educated by the right people, all of a sudden you thought it was going to be that way forever, and then they'd come in and clip you. It's like when all the farmers had to go get all the loans to meet all the obligations, and the federal government's in there, and they're trying to encourage farmers, get the loans and get new tractors and build up. And then as soon as they get fully invested, we had a hard year. The economy is contracting. Next thing you know, all the banks own your property.
Right.
Own your kids' inheritance, and you're being kicked out, and your farm's being sold at auction. You can't sell it for anything of what it was worth just a short while ago, because now the money isn't as free and easy as it was just a short while ago. So at the end of the day, this step on the gas, step on the brakes, step on the gas has been going on for a long time. And we're in that mode right now where all this spending is happening here in America, but no real production is happening. See, when Reagan did it, he built up the military industrial machine, and it didn't matter that we went to, $1 trillion debt, a multiple of $1 trillion. I think it was first $1 trillion under Carter. Now that I think about it, it may have been 100 billion, but it was some number like that. And then by the time Reagan got done, it was 10 times higher. So I think it was $1 trillion under Reagan. But anyway, it's been so long, I haven't looked at those figures for a long time. The reality is that this time around, we're not spending the money on the machinery that makes America go strong. We're spending it on things that don't actually make anything. They neither spin nor toil. They're in somebody else's playground outside the United States. We're not building up the oil industry in America. We're not building up the steel industry in America. We're not building up the computer systems in America. We're building up other people's house, other places that we don't have full control of. We're sending and exporting our money to secure borders out across the world and not securing our own. So what happens is, essentially the same thing will happen to us that has happened to the bankers under Trump. He had got the money, the asset, it's in a poorly performing economy. All of a sudden the value went down radically, and he already had his piece. They had to negotiate with him to come in and fix it. We're going to have to negotiate with all those people that we gave our wealth to give us some of it back. Please give us some back, because you invested in your own backyard.
Right.
You invested it offshore somewhere, and there was a bunch of criminals that got it, a bunch of biker gang people that got it, and then you're going back to the Hells Angels. Would you consider loaning us back some of our money? Yeah, sure. 25% interest. How much you want? Okay, it's a den of thieves.
Yep.
So now for your listeners, precisely. Are you at that point in the game, and this is a serious question, this is something you have to go between you and God himself. I don't have the right answer for the people in your audience. They have to get divine guidance and assistance on what they're supposed to do, okay? But that said, for example, I had a gal that we talked extensively a couple months back, and they have energy land that's used for certain type of energy production. And in a key part of the world. And I said, you could put it in gold and silver. You got a lot of cash. I'd take that cash and I'd convert it to machinery, tools, equipment, contracts, because we're going to move oil production back to America. when this whole thing changes gears, because it all starts with energy. Energy makes the world go round.
Right.
And so I would invest in the tools of production now, because when this whole thing washes through, and it will, like all Ponzi schemes, we're going to come to a hard ending here. It's going to be really hard to get things made. It's going to be hard to get the steel. It's going to be hard to get the equipment, all the computer stuff flowing again. Might take a year and a half to get things, moving again. If you contract those right now to be made for you, and they're making them while the economy is kind of coming to this stop, those companies are going to cut you a really sharp pencil. They're going to make them for you for a really good price. They want to stay alive. They want to stay in production. You've got cash sitting there. I would buy the machinery, the tools that you need to extract that oil. And then you don't probably actually want to do the extraction, because you do it with contracts with other companies that do that. But you've got the equipment now that you can lease them, and they can do what they already do pretty well, and you'll make it both on the actual material and on the equipment to pull that material out. And they agreed. I went out and talked to a couple different manufacturers that I thought had very interesting new technology that was very good, and contracted just a few weeks ago for a lot of that equipment. And so while everybody else is closing up and the regulations and blah, 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 they just went in and tripled down. They didn't buy gold bars. They didn't buy silver coins. They bought what was needed, the tools, the machinery of production, to get the raw materials out and into the system right here in the USA. When the politics goes a certain way, the pendulum's going to swing back, and it's going to be all elbows and assholes to get America back on a even keel and non-dependent on other countries who don't like us, to produce oil again and have our own energy. And it's also, you could see gold or silver go up significantly. That's because it's a tangible, but gold and silver coin don't work. They don't spin. They don't toil. They're a reserve of wealth. They're not a tool of wealth, of manufacturing. And so they actually bought the tool, the golden goose that makes the eggs, as opposed to just holding on to a bunch of eggs. And within your audience, if you had, you're really well off and you had the ability to go buy a bunch of gold and silver and hide it under the bed. If you'd done that 10 years ago, you wouldn't have made anything. If you'd done that 5 years ago, you wouldn't have made anything. Now, the people that I talked with, and I just talked with one of my friends here the other day, and I had made a recommendation for a particular group back in, I think, 2012. And they said, no, you want to do the same thing American Barrick is doing, where you buy your gold and silver, you have a certain amount. I think at that time they were buying like 3 million, this particular group. But then what you do is you go into the futures market and options markets, and you sell puts and calls. You sell futures on your gold and silver, and you can do it on a multiple of what you actually have, and you trade within a bracket, because it's not going to zero and it's not going to outer space. You trade at the margins. And so they've been trading all this time while gold and silver moved around a fair amount but never really went anywhere, just got churned a bunch and baited a bunch of people in. They made money on the speculators, and they had, for their original investment, made about $20 million in that period of time.
Yeah.
And so they were trading against that. They were being very active, and they were getting money out of speculators. What's about to happen now, though, I believe is a little bit different. There's moments when you just want to have something tangible, and you have to be able to step aside and have something that has real value after the fact. So, is it a painting? Is it a rare car? Is it something else? Well, in Brazil, when they got into hyperinflation back in the 80s, people would buy anything when they got off of work at the end of the day, the end of the week, whatever, because they knew their money was going to be worth less by the end of the week. They had hyperinflation. So they'd buy a refrigerator, they'd buy a washing machine, they'd buy shoes that didn't fit them, anything tangible, and then they would trade them later, and it might go up radically in value over the next several days, but it was something real. In that hyper inflation kind of environment. In America, because they're printing all this money, but it's not making anything, it's not doing anything, it's going into the netherworld, into the Luciferian world, into the Ukrainian world of mobsters, and coming back just to get politicians into office to control us. Did it make anything? Did it produce something that's a lasting asset of value? Look, if it bought a bunch of politicians, that's not lasting, and that doesn't have any great value, right? Unless you're a mobster. You have nothing of real substance to show for it. So you're on the verge of a inflationary monster. We see it every day with prices going to the moon, and a deflationary monster at the same time. The big ticket stuff like houses, office buildings, equipment, it's going, if you're holding those big assets, it's going down in value. In the case of technology, the new oil stuff that my friend contracted for is the latest high-tech version of drilling systems that are very compact, etc. And that will make the older stuff go down in value radically in this next run to get America back working again. So they invested in the future technology-wise and where our economy is going to have to go to get us out of this hole. In your personal life, if you don't, if you have a business that you do that requires certain assets or machinery, you may want to watch and be able to buy into that for the rebuilding of America. You may want to anticipate that, but what do you do for holding something that's not paper when the paper is being inflated and going down in value? Well, maybe you do have to have gold or silver or some other tangible that fits you. It's as individual as you are as a person. One person can have the right saw and make things that people need. Another one has good farmland. One of my friends just bought more manure to spread across his farm to make sure that that the soil was the most productive that it could possibly be to maintain it, and that was his big investment, was to keep the soil as healthy as possible for food production moving out in the future.
About bartering, they're saying sugar, flour, whatever. Then what one person wants, another person will want to trade for it. And they're chatting about that right now.
Well, no, hold on. Let me say this. There's a post-apocalyptic world where it's you're in this system for years. I don't believe what we're coming into right now resembles that in any way.
Okay.
We're not talking Armageddon, and so a lot of people that talk on this, they're looking, guns, butter, bullets, coffee, cigarettes, okay? It's not going to be that kind of a world or for very long. America's the most vulnerable to an apocalyptic kind of a setting. And so the people that are working to protect America behind the scenes with stuff that, I mentioned to you earlier, I wish I could get into some details of things that are happening behind the scenes right now, but I can't even allude to it. It would be inappropriate. But we're going to get through this It's going to be amazing. It's going to get worse before it gets better. It's going to be very gripping. But
let me, before you, because I know we're late here, I just got to, if I don't answer this, I'm going to get stoned by them. They want to know your opinion on President Trump's announcement.
Well, I was there. It was beautiful. And, one thing you have to remember with President Trump, the back of the room was just covered in media on the stand back there. It was just stunning. Okay. And I think they said they had 300 to 500 different news organizations that were represented there, which is fine. It was a big number. And so, just a second here. I gotta make sure I don't lose my battery. Trump looked that, piss and vinegar, is the same thing that Trump has from time to time. Oh, yeah, here, hold on. Let me just, let's see here.
Yeah, we're losing it.
All right.
Okay?
I had switch out. Yeah, I was trying to switch to my car charger, but it was messing with me. So I was trying to put it on the car's speaker system. That wouldn't have worked for your mic, yeah. Donald Trump is like Joe Namath. Joe Namath was this amazing guy. He got injured a bunch in college. His knees were shot. His shoulders were tweaked out to death. But he was a bigger than life guy, and he had one trick up his sleeve, and that was as many times as he could screw with the other guys on other teams. He didn't even just play for a game to win a game. He played to win a season, and thinking through their opponents and when he wanted to look a certain way and when he wanted to look another way. And so Namath, he had really big hands, and he would stick the ball in a guy's gut that's a runner and sell the play. He'd stick that ball in there. That guy would just squeeze around it and keep running. And he'd ever so deftly, because he had big hands, he could hold onto that ball really well, even though it's going a certain way, pull it right out from that guy. And guys wouldn't see that it had been done, and he'd hold it in there for longer than most guys. And that guy would be running with all this intensity. Namath would fall back, bam, he'd fire that ball down the field. And as many times as they knew it was coming, they couldn't tell because he could sell the move, the play so well.
Yeah, he was great.
And then the other side of the coin is he would, oftentimes, there'd be media, and, Namath is, playing hurt, and he's really in tough shape, and we saw him getting in his car the other day, and he had to pick his legs up to get in the car. I had some serious injuries on my legs, and I remember, before I had to go through some, really intensive therapy, I'd have to literally grab my pants. A lot of times I'd wear shorts just so I could get a good grip on them and lift my legs in the car because it hurt so bad. And he would do stuff for theatrics. He'd be out there in his fur collar, fur jacket, having a great time, but then they'd see him behind the scenes, and he was just barely functional and all that. The girls that would be hanging around with them privately, they'd tell their mobster friends, he's really hurting this week, and he's taken a lot of painkiller this week and stuff like that. And the other team, he might throw the ball the whole first half of the game and be throwing short. His runners are going out past where the ball's at, and he's never able to get it down to him. And then you get to some critical point in the game, and he'd tell the guy, okay, this time run for all it's worth. And the other team's player would know he's not going to be able to throw the ball that far down the field. I've seen him throwing the ball all day and barely get it wherever it's going, and he'd have to just stop. But then that one play, he'd throw that thing so far down the field, the other guy would be down way past his opponent and wide open. And the guy had gone slow because he wasn't going to work that hard over a play that's never going to happen. And Namath had pulled one out of nowhere and do this long bomb, and the other guy's like, "Oh shit, I didn't think he had it in him. I didn't see how did he do that? He's been playing injured all day. It was getting worse as the day went on, and he'd come out with these, third and fourth quarter wins, and he was great at sucking the other side into a certain understanding belief system. Trump is out. All the megas are out. Well, we're not quite done yet. And watch what happens with these votes in these states where we have so much reporting. Is this the same as 2020 or anything else? Did they really get seen and caught? And everybody was paying much closer attention this time. Are those votes going to go to certification unchallenged? And what is the resolution for these places where people didn't get a chance to do an honest vote? Is it going to be recounting forever, or was the vote even there? Is it going to be a re-vote? Now, one of the attorneys that I hired early on back in 2020, after the 2020 election, he's the only attorney that had ever gotten a re-vote in an election in Nevada, and that's still practicing. And we know that is and can be done. Watch what happens next. You're going to see the whole country seeing some spectacles coming and challenges to that vote. It's not over yet. And by the way, the problem always was it's not, it's projection by some of these political players, where they were getting their bread buttered and who they're involved with and all that sort of thing. Russia. Well, the reality is Russia may have been there in some level, but it wasn't to the Trump side. It might have been to Republicans, but not to Trump. But the far greater threat, the far deeper involvement in our election system is out of China. And so you're going to hear some things very shortly that, there's some pieces of it that are out of South America. The more critical pieces are going to be out of China and the manipulation of the vote. And, beyond that, I just, I'll let it run its course. But this is far from over. And people need to understand, and the American people have to demand, the justice system. How are you going to get to justice in the justice system? Unfortunately, it starts with the judges. It's not the attorneys and the pleadings, it's the judges. And how they decide to adjudicate or not adjudicate certain cases, to hear them or not hear them. Even right now, we have a case that's on the docket at the Supreme Court that I was with a law professor last night, a friend of mine, and he says, it's this case going to being on the Supreme Court docket.
Spinning. Hold on. Are you there?
I'm here. Did it do something?
Yeah, we got it back.
Okay. So I had dinner last night with a bunch of folks, including a friend of mine who's a law professor, and I had sent him something earlier in the week about this case that's gone onto the docket at the Supreme Court, and he was, at the time I talked about it, he was highly suspicious that had happened. And he was like, I can't imagine. And he had to go on the docket and says, oh my gosh, it actually got on there.
Wow.
I'm shocked. And
that's what a constitutional attorney said to me, Juan. He said he said that's not going to happen. They're not going to take it up.
But they did.
It's crazy.
So what's that mean? Does somebody have leverage released from them that are going to allow them to actually look at something that they wouldn't otherwise have looked at because the system's been so cooked for so long.
Right.
We're coming into a new and unusual time. Who would have believed that Roe versus Wade could be overturned?
Right. That's true.
And that dark angel over Dallas that spread its wings across America. They like to be on the high places, these principalities and powers of darkness. And so that angel was knocked off its perch and its wings are broken. Okay? Is it still stomping around? Is it still a threat? Yeah, there's a number of states. And by the way, for example, in Kansas, the mischief around the vote in Kansas where abortion was on the line. And it appears that mischief was done in the vote to make sure that abortion didn't get overturned in Kansas. Other states around there had laws in place that when Roe versus Wade came down, it meant no abortions in those states immediately. But Kansas was one where it was able to survive. And so then it became this nexus state where everybody could send people to from adjoining states to get the abortions. And they had to preserve that one place. Kansas has its work cut out for us to get to an honest vote. It's a critical location to get to an honest vote because abortion is on the line there. And again, I come back to, if you want to be blessed in America, how are you going to get to that blessing if you're allowing the Luciferian Baal system to rule over you? And by the way, even when it comes to money, if you want God to bless the fruits of your labor, and it's denominated in the symbology of Luciferianism, then you're asking God to bless the workings of the devil. Now, I understand we're in a corrupt system. I understand that, it has Rome's images on it. You have to survive and live. But I'll tell you what.
Right.
It's like saying, God bless America, God bless Washington, D.C. Oh, really?
Right.
The house of Satan, Lucifer, the devil, is at that extreme. Look, from the very center of the city.
Yeah.
The monument to Osiris, a great big penis, a fuck you to America. Okay, that's what the symbology is. Wake up. You have a Christian audience here. Do you think that God is that divided? Is there any tinge or shadow of darkness in God your Father?
No.
So is there any way in all of creation that God is going to bless the workings of Satan, the devil, Lucifer, Baal?
Not at all.
And it's the centerpiece of your whole federal operation. But God bless it, because I need that money. God bless the Ponzi scheme so I can get to the top for me, so I get my retirement for me. It's like everybody else got it. It's my turn. Well, you're playing in a rigged system.
Right.
You gave your wealth. You were conned into it. It was a con job. I get it. But excuse me, it's still a con job. So do you bail? Do you convert to something that's real, that fits the Constitution? My contention is constitutional money will do just fine. At some point, the bail system money to get you out of the bail jail is going to go to the value of dots and tittles on a computer screen. Okay, so get your brain in the right place. Step aside from the system and look for real things that denominate your wealth, intangibles that aren't the tangibles marked with all their talismans.
Right.
Okay, so that you don't have to carry those around in your pocket.
Right.
Now I will say this, and by the way, if you do have, you're in Rome, you have unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Look, I have cash in my pocket. You have to have something to function, etc.
You have to.
But you have to understand that that which I have there is what I need moment to moment, day to day.
Yeah.
And was I able to help somebody with, today as I couldn't find a restaurant that was what I wanted. And so I literally drove like 6 or 7 miles down one of the main drags here looking for one of the breakfast type restaurants. And I didn't want to punch in the thing on my phone and go searching. I was expecting I'd see something right on the main drag. It was kind of a spontaneous thing, and it turned out I had a little time that I could do something. So I went ahead to go find me a quick breakfast restaurant. Well, shoot, I drive like 5-6 miles, and I finally see one that looked like it might be just the right kind of a place. And Today's the Palm Beach place that I haven't been to before, but actually was pretty good. And I park my rig and I go walking around the corner to go in. And as I get right to the corner of the building, and it was raining hard earlier, I mean, it was just coming down. And here's this lady standing right outside the door, just completely in tears, all upset. Obviously, has had a very hard day, and she'd probably had a pretty rough life for quite a while. You could tell it wasn't like she was, having the best day or the best years of her life. And I said, "What's going on?" And she's telling me what happened, and her boyfriend broke up with her and left her here, and she doesn't have any ID. She doesn't have her money. She didn't even have money to call anybody or a cell phone. He took off in the car, and she's all upset. And I said, "Well, what do you need to get home? Do you have somebody you can call? I got a phone here. What can I do?" And she didn't have anybody she really felt she could call. And I said, "Well, I can get you an Uber." She says, "No, there's a bus here. I don't. That's too much money. I just if I have like $2 to catch the bus, I can catch the bus home, and I can be home in a couple hours." And she's like 25 miles from home or whatever. And so we talked about it for a few minutes, and I had some of that paper money in my pocket, and I gave her some, and got an address from her, and made arrangements for her to get home. That was put to use in a way. I always tell the angels, I always tell God, look, if there's this unusual situation and there's nobody else available, I'm available, and I'm glad to do whatever needs to be done, and you've given me some means to get by. Use me. Well, when I didn't find a place to go, of all the places that I could end up, I didn't see her when I saw the building, and I drove around the building, parked, and came driving over where I was at, and the rain just come down really hard. And there she was standing there. And so I prayed with her. We talked about it a few minutes, said a prayer with her. It was a very nice time. Thanked God for letting me be the one guy that shows up at that critical moment, gave her something to get her by, and made arrangements to get her home. Was that improper to use that Luciferian money and put it to use for that thing? And was it a blessing or not? I think it was a blessing. It's the system we're in.
That's right.
I did what could be done with what I had at that moment.
That's right.
So I think we have to use some intelligence,
Right.
understanding the serpents that were surrounded by, the wolves, the evil. But at the end of the day, in the perfect right world, we want to have a system that is closer to what God intends for us, even though we're in a corrupt world.
Amen.
Even what President Trump just did in announcing that he's going to run for the presidency of the Republic, and he actually filed papers to that effect.
Yeah.
See, the papers say that. He's laying the groundwork for America to go a new direction.
Amen.
And not be caught up in their system. And we have to be there to understand that and support it. And when he was being understated, lower key in what he was saying, He wasn't. He gave a speech that was very much like the speech he gives at rallies.
Right.
A lot of the exact same phrases. If you've been to a few of them, he has a certain way that he presents, and it's his way of doing it.
Yeah.
Even the way his speech goes, where he talks and how he says things, and he says a little under his breath. And he had certain little spots where he didn't even say 2024, he said 2020. First time he mentioned a date. It was very good.
Yeah.
He's very sneaky, okay?
I love that.
We're watching theater, Joe Namath, or as I've even said with your audience, in fact, I'm wearing my jacket right now, Trump as the Megador, fighting the deep state bull, and baiting it to wear itself out, wear itself down, so that he can get in there and get the kill shot in. And that's where we're at right now. And when it does happen, it's going to be epic. It's going to...
I hope he comes back. Well, Trump.
It was just really getting good.
I know. Trump
had an urgent call. I had an urgent call that was coming in there. I'll have to get to it pretty quickly.
Okay.
So I apologize on that. But you know, we've talked behind the scenes a little bit. There is a lot of stuff I'd love to tell your audience, but it would be inappropriate right now. And I'm, you know, but.
Well, when you can come back on, let us know.
Yeah, you know, there's a lot, you know, because I love doing this live. There's just an energy about it. There's a lot of people that have a lot of questions that they trust your wisdom.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we should do this again soon.
Oh, I'd love to. And you know that we had several times you guys had asked me if I would do a show, and I love to do the shows.
Okay.
This last few weeks, I've only done a handful of shows because I've had so many things going on in the background. It is a critical moment. It is all coming to a head, and you know, you get attacks at all different levels. You know, it was one of that was why I mentioned that what happened with me with the gal at the restaurant, Tasha, today. And say a prayer for Tasha. She's, you know, we can all find ourselves in very short order going from halfway together to, you know which way to go. What are you going to do?
Right.
She didn't, you know, she maybe didn't do some things right, but that could be any one of us any given day. And I felt it was a beautiful thing that God in his whole universe allowed me, and I said it when I prayed with her, I said, thank you, Father, for having me right here, right now, with what's needed in my pocket to assist right this second. And I pray that you would bless Tasha and give her the means that she needs to get through this situation and to get to a more stable situation and to get her life on track and to get the right assistance and resources. I didn't ask him to bless the paper. I asked him to provide the resources.
Yeah.
People wondering about where they gotta do stuff.
Right.
Do that paper. It's the stuff you get with it. So anyway, folks, I love y'all.
We love you, Juan.
I look forward to talking to you some more. I have more confidence than ever that we are on the right path. I pray for President Trump continuously. I pray for the whole country. And even as a reverse talisman marker, I'm wearing my jacket. You can go get it over at the jennifermac.com. The Megador jacket. It is so beautiful. I love it. Go get it, have some fun, and make a statement.
Juan, you're breaking up. Those jackets are for sale?
Yeah, on jennifermac.com.
jennifermac.com. Yeah, that's the shirt too. And cup.
Yeah.
I'm all wand out tonight.
Yeah. Juan, I don't know if you can hear me.
Right.
If you can hear me. Trump had me at the Fight for America begins tonight, and the 19 flag behind him, and he said he was running for president of the republic, and I was good. That's all we needed to know.
He gives all kinds of
That's right.
Yeah, I loved it. But thank you for always for coming. Well, we're going to bug you to come back on when you can
Yeah,
do it.
Ron, really, really. I would love to do a question and answer with the chat people. You know, they would just love to get some answers from you.
Yeah.
Well, I gave them one answer. How many more do you want? It only took me 2 hours to give you the
I know,
answer.
but you know, they want 5 in that
Most
amount
of
of
them,
time.
most of them will have beards longer than mine by the time I get through 10 answers.
Including the women?
Listen, you're one of a kind. We love you. You speak in parables like Jesus.
Sometimes, you know, if just a yes or no, I know people, you know, I just want, just tell me, just tell me, just tell me. But I don't know if you have the context to
Right.
really kind of work through it. And so
That's
I'm
right.
trying to give you, how do you get to that answer, not just an answer? You know, I'm trying to help you work through in your mind.
No, we get it. We get it. We get it.
Yeah.
You're the best.
So.
You're the best.
I love it. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for you. Thank you
Yeah.
so much.
Yes. Yes. You know we love
All
you,
right.
and really looking forward to the next time you come on. And please take care of yourself.
Yeah, I'm going to be praying for that.
Well, you know, I mentioned to you, so I've changed coasts 4 times in 2 weeks with all the stops in between, and I've actually got to, in fact, well, I got to go a long ways here over the next few days, twice again. So there's a lot going on, and I don't, you know, I plugged my phone into the car, just, you know, so my voice probably sounds a little different right now because I'm on the car speaker, but you know, I think there's some of the people doing the presentations and they're trying to be, you know, secret squirrel and all this stuff going on. And I can't tell anybody this or that, but it's really big. I'm not trying to be that way. I'm just, there's stuff that really is not, it would not be appropriate for me to discuss.
Yeah.
And I do let people know that, you know, there's real stuff that, you know, I run with a pretty serious crowd, you know that.
Yep.
And so I try my best to tell you as much as I can of little details here and there without getting into minutia that might hurt some of the people that are actually trying to do this work or give a move away beforehand. So there's a lot of stuff that I'm aware of before it happens. And there's a lot of stuff that's alleged about to be happened that doesn't necessarily happen. It's not because anybody was lying or disingenuous, it's because we're in a moving battlefield situation where some moves get blocked off and some moves are just blocking and things like that. It's just the nature of the game. So I'm trying to just get you in the zone as best I can. By the way, I've got the 3rd edition most of the way ready to be finished. I had some changes I wanted to do just because I was so late in getting it out, and I need to address that, and I apologize for those people. I only in one place pre-sold some 3rd editions, and I'm going to make sure that those people are very well taken care of. If there's anybody that did pre-purchase, I'm going to set up something if they want to get bought out by others that would like that and get something more than what they put in. I'm glad to do that. I feel bad because I didn't get it out when I said I would, and it's very frustrating, but it was, we had a paper issue, supply issue, and then I got right in the thick of stuff, and I felt I needed to make a couple of additions there, so I feel horrible about it, but there's not very many people. There was about 1,100 that were pre-sold, and that was it. And so I'll do something special for those people, and I'll talk about it. So if there's any of them in your audience,
Awesome.
I'll be reaching out to them very shortly and make sure that they feel like they got a nice square deal, and or they got an option to step aside and let others take it. And I think it's going to be an important one, and it's going to be a very low production because the 4th edition follows right on its heels, but it's about the rebuilding, and I don't want to put that out quite yet, and I did a lot of writing related to that at the same time I was doing the 3rd edition. So, you know, I'm trying to give people a little bit of an understanding of what's going on, but in the meantime, And as long as I'm here, we'll do the quick infomercial. If you go over to thejennifermack.com, she's got some fun stuff over there, and you can get my books and
And the
stuff
jacket.
like that. You know, and jacket and cups and stuff like that.
Yeah,
She
yeah.
does, I mean, because that's her, you
My
know,
favorite mug.
she did that Megador picture for me. I asked her if she would, based on the presentations I did for you and others.
Yeah.
And I think it's just an amazing piece of art. When you see it in person, I mean, I had it on a couple different times. I was out to dinner over the last week or so, and every time I'm out there, people just gravitate towards it. I had probably 20 people that came up to me last night, and were just, where do I get that? Oh my gosh, you know, because it really is. It's a beautiful piece of art. So anyway, that's it for the commercial. But I appreciate. The
Oh, it's
only reason
great. It's
I
great.
appreciate very much that everybody in your audience, these, you know, we're trying to make statements even with the people around us and be counted on the right side of history. And I think that was, you know, at one level, I'm being kind of flamboyant in a way that I'm not normally. I'd rather wear my leather vest, etc. But I was in a crowd that just come out of Mar-a-Lago, and I thought, I'm gonna wear my jacket. You know, you have to have a dinner jacket over at Mar-a-Lago, and I thought, no, I'm not there, so I'm gonna wear my Megador jacket. And but where I was at, there was only a small number of them. That was probably a dozen of them that had just come from Mar-a-Lago, and the rest of the restaurant was probably 150 people in there. And I had people coming from all over the place to come over. I got to get a picture of that. I love that. How can I order one? And because it's that fun.
I gotta
And
go look at it. I'm gonna
people,
go look at it now.
Yeah, I'll go
well,
later.
people want to make a statement. So one of the guys, says, no, I want to get that. I'm wearing it on the golf course this week. Trump plays right there on the course where I play. I'm going to wear that sucker. We got a bunch of these rhinos and DeSantis people there, and I want to be counted on the right team. And so, that was his way of making a statement.
Yeah.
And he made a big deal out of it. And these are all old codgers like me. They're late 60s, early 70s, and they going out and having some fun, but they're doing a little advertising which team they're on. I think it's very, very fun. And I don't know of any other stuff out there that's quite like it. So I'm just saying I'm having fun with it, and I appreciate very much that Jennifer did what she did at such a high level, and it's pretty reasonable. I was gonna have the art, just so you kind of know, I was gonna have the art put on one of my leather jackets. I have a really cool leather bomber jacket, and so I was gonna have them do a screen and put it on that. But after I got it the way Jennifer got it done, I'm like, no way, it wouldn't even look half as cool as it does this way. So it's just fun. Look,
You have
we
to
gotta have
tell
some
her.
fun here.
My audience is screaming for her too.
Yeah.
I get so many emails.
Yeah, I really wants to have her on too for John F. Kennedy Jr., but she wasn't doing any at the time. But I hear about it all the time. I believe it's
I bought them about it.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's just fun. And so at some level, we're being so serious and we're so gripping. And do I buy sugar or beans? Sugar or beans?
Right.
Bullets or butter? And I'm saying, no, this isn't quite that situation. It's not. This isn't the end of the world.
Chat. They were concerned about would they barter?
Yeah, this is not that situation, and we're talking for a relatively brief period of time. America's not done and gone. We got dramas ahead. America's not done and gone. This situation is going to be very serious. It is a near-death experience for America, but it's not the end of America. It's not the end of the world. A near death is not your end. It's intended to give you a certain understanding and values and ideas. I'm 2 minutes from the gate. Yeah, just let me know. All So that's the routine. So there you
Yeah,
go, kids.
All right.
so keep praying, everybody.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, Jody. A happy
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
you guys too. And I'll be
All
praying
right.
for both of you with the coughing in the name of Jesus. So,
Yeah,
God bless you all.
yeah. We got to do it. We got to do it again.
Yeah, we'll be in
All
touch.
right.
Yeah.
I'm sorry it was so long. You just know I was very buried over the last several weeks with the
No,
election.
don't
On.
worry
So,
about it. Don't worry about it. Thank you so much. I mean,
Thank
here
you.
you are not feeling well, and you came on. That's so, that's so thoughtful of you. So appreciate you. Take care of yourself.
Yeah, we'll be praying for you.
of
Thanksgiving.
course.
All right.
Hey, everybody in the chat, have a beautiful
Bye,
Thanksgiving.
everybody.
And
Yeah,
everybody,
and think up those questions, and I'll try to answer them faster than 2 hours.
that's a deal.
That's cute.
I have some good ones, Juan. You would have loved them.
Yeah.
All right.
We love you. Love you both.
Love you all.
All right.
Good night, everybody. Juan, take it easy, my friend. Jody, you too.
You too, love.
All right.
Good
Sounds good. All
Bye-bye.
right, guys. Bye.
Okay, bye.